that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah, that's right. First of all, since it is September 12th, we missed 9/11. Let's take one brief moment of silence in remembrance for all the fallen victims of 9/11. Thank you all for that. And coming up first, that's right, it is the dope dad himself. When he's not changing diapers or counting cards, you can find him at TEDx convention babying sitting grown adults. That's right, the dope dad himself, none other than the Rico Lamitte.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that amazing intro, Jason, and welcome back, everyone. Hope you've all had a phenomenal weekend, and remember, getting high at 9 with us on Monday mornings is now scientifically proven to be the best start to a new week. My headline today is from the Jamaica Observer titled, All Female Speakers for CanX Jamaica Business Conference and Expo. The 5th annual CanX Jamaica Business Conference and Expo kicks off this week, running from September 15th to the 17th at the Montego Bay Convention Center. And for the first time in conference history, all keynote speakers will be women. And while this shouldn't be major news that a conference will be featuring an all-female lineup for keynote speaking duties, it is. And until we live in a world where women are afforded the same opportunities and access their male counterparts are, more specifically white men do, amplification of stories like this are paramount to achieving an equitable future. That being said, let's take a closer look at CanX's all-star lineup and a few of their accolades. The first speaker will be cell biologist and Jamaican native daughter, Dr. Annabelle Manalo Morgan. Her son, at just 5 weeks old, had 38% of his brain removed, and medical experts predicted that he'd never function on his own. She formulated a cannabis-based medicine for him, and he's now 6 years old with no developmental deficits. Manalo Morgan says the experience inspired her to continue advancing the medical potential of the plant, seeking to bridge the gap between natural science and modern medicine. The second keynote speaker will be coming from former Illinois Senator and current Marijuana Policy Project President and CEO, Toy Hutchinson. Hutchinson's known as a champion of human rights issues, more specifically the protection of women and children, tax reform, and cannabis legislation. The conference's third featured address will be delivered by the industry's first Black legal operator, Wanda James. James and her husband co-founded Simply Pure, the Denver-based legally licensed cannabis dispensary, cultivation shop, and edible company. Over the years, she's become an outspoken advocate against prohibition and champion of equitable practices within the industry. And rounding out the group as CanX's final keynote speaker will be former Bancorp CEO and current industry consultant, Jamie Pearson. After serving 4 years as director and 3 as president and CEO of the internationally recognized and respected Bang Incorporated, Pearson recently stepped down from the role, becoming one of the most sought-after industry consultants and influencers in the game. Congratulations to all the women who will be speaking, and I know it'll be an amazing conference in the beautiful island nation. I believe moments like this should be celebrated so the next generation of girl leaders like my daughter have visible inspiration to draw from, and bars set above a floor of broken glass that was once the ceiling as they begin making their own moves into positions of power. Damn, I wish I was in Jamaica this week to collect just a few of the gems about to be dropped. This is Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street. Thank you for getting high at 9 with me and the rest of the team. You guys got some comments? Come on now. Come on.
Wow. I have to applaud Douglas Gordon and the team from CanX Jamaica for making this bold decision. And make no mistake, it's a decision. Those keynote spots are highly coveted and paid for in a lot of places and conferences, let's just be honest. So I just want to applaud the CanX team for elevating the voice of the women in this industry, because, there's a lot of wisdom there. So
yes, I'm going to sound
totally biased when I say this. It's probably going to be one of the most educational conferences that anyone's ever paid for. So, like, if you want to get your money's worth at an expo where you're not going to walk up and probably just hear people pop their own collar for their own business, and they'll probably actually give you some real life gems to help, like, extend your career, build your business. They're going to actually help you. I think this is going to be the expo. And again, I'm not trying to be biased or anything, but I do know, as a woman in this space, we work twice as hard for half as much credit on a regular basis. So I guarantee you that's going to be twice as good. And unfortunately, I think there's only a couple articles about this that we've seen, and so it sounds like about half as much press, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be twice as good.
Which is
Yeah,
expected, right?
I would
Unfortunately.
also applaud them for doing that. I know last year at CWCBE, for the first time, we set aside a whole section for Women Grow and for female entrepreneurs, and provided that to them. And honestly, it was the most energetic. It was the most well received, best part of the conference. Everyone loves speaking to the women. I think women just have, and no offense to you, two men up there in the corner, but women just bring a different energy and dynamic to these types of events. And I think a different perspective that's definitely needed in this industry. I think a lot of people forget a lot of this industry started with the caregiver, which was generally women. And so I think a lot of respect needs to go to the women who've built this space. And I'm glad that Jamaica's doing this.
Female plant.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have to give it to the organizers as well. And I hope that because the content is going to be such fire, that companies around the country will understand that they need more women to be better. They just need more women in their ranks to be better. And this world would be better if more women were in positions of power. So that's what I hope comes out of it.
So I throw a lot of events over the past, I'd say 8-9 years. I've probably participated in organization fashion of about 100 different cannabis events. I've also through women's events. They were called the Women of Sensi, and we would have just nothing but, focused on different women, business, owners and scientists, and just all these amazing women in the industry. And it is remarkable to see. I will get my bios on time. I'll get my information filled out quickly. I won't have to chase people down for shit. The women expos have been amazing for that, where I'm just like, all right, cool. I sent the email and everyone clicked the fucking button. Go figure. So thank you, ladies.
Women, women get shit done, and there's no offense they're taken at all, Gretchen.
Jason, Rico, I would ask you, your experience working in the space, do you find it better or easier to work with women over men?
Yes, I think it's I think it's better. Over my 6 years on above ground in this industry, and this is just me keeping it real, and I have the facts and the figures to prove it. Like, the women on my teams have always got it done. They've been better salespeople on my teams, and they actually follow through what they say they're going to do. Period.
Well, I'm going to say it always depends on the job. But overall, I will say that as far as all employees, I have a majority of female employees over male employees.
I'm sorry, I just can't hide my excitement here. Y'all know, but my podcast is focused on the women in this industry, and it's just like, those are the vibes. It's, we can work together. Let's find a solution. What's your goal? This is my goal. Hey man, we're more powerful together. And we bring the men into that, I feel like. I mean, it's just,
And none of us would be here if it wasn't for a woman. So shout out to all the women out there. Big ups.
Big up to the ladies, to the mamas, the babies' mamas, and the babies' mamas' mamas out there doing the damn thing.
And let's not forget let's not segregate. We also have to include the female plants.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Indeed. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that headline, Rico. That story was a great way to start our week. Some motivational Monday for all you ladies out there. We hopefully are going to be getting our opportunity to shine in this industry. I'm really, really hopeful for that. But up next, we have Mr. Jason Beck. Jason is the longest running retailer in the history of cannabis globally. He's also our very own Kaiser Brose and the highest Republican. What do you have for us today, Jason?
Oh, yes. Good morning, Nicole. Thank you so much for that. I hope everyone is having an amazing day today. But I can tell you, the people in South Dakota are going to have to wait and see how amazing of a day they have, because campaigns for and against adult use cannabis are in full force, and a new field office has opened up in Rapid City, South Dakota. One of the most hotly contested races in the midterm elections in the state is the legalization of adult use cannabis, after a new polling suggests that voters may not be as enthusiastic about passing it as they were 2 years ago. The campaigns on both sides of the issue are gearing up for a bruising fight. The campaign to legalize adult use cannabis is expanding expanding its operation and opening up a new field office in Rapid City ahead of this November's midterm elections. The office is in the North Street location, as the IM27 petition drive held in April. Matthew Sheshnick, campaign manager for the Yes on 27, said that the group is excited to use the facility to give out yard signs and get people registered to vote. In a quote, "We want to get volunteers in here to do training. We'll do phone banking training where people can sit here and make those calls in the office." Sinwich said, "We'll do the same thing with canvassing training, bringing people in and taking them through knocking on doors, talking to voters, and doing the registration forms." Another organization coming out in full support of the measure is the Genesis Farms, which is already distributing medical cannabis after its passage 2 years ago. Manager Emmett Rolstofer said that the medical cannabis rollout has been smooth and expects the same for the adult use industry. In a quote, he says, "We don't think anybody should be punished for using cannabis responsibly as an adult," Rolstofer said. So Measure 27 seems like the logical step forward that most states across the country have decided to go after having medical first. However, not everyone shares the enthusiasm for the precedent that the other states have set. Protecting South Dakota Kids is the opposition campaign against legalizing adult use cannabis in the state. That's right, those people are the prohibitionists. Chairman Jim Kenyon, president of the Prohibitionists, said the organization is working with a lot less in their fight to keep recreational marijuana out of South Dakota. He also says there's a whole coalition, these groups coming together, and we are all moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, mental health professionals, law enforcement, people doing a wide range of things coming together to say no, Kenyon said. A recent poll from South Dakota News Watch shows that more than 54% of respondents oppose cannabis legalization, but advocates say results don't line up with the levels of support that they've been seeing this election on November 8th. Well, I'll tell you what, South Dakota, it's very important that you get out there and vote for these important initiatives, and that's the only way you guys are going to have any type of sensible drug policy is if you elect it in. And this is Jason Beck reporting for High at 9 News.
Well, I think that the South Dakotans need to be overwhelming in their response to passing this initiative. Don't forget, 2 years ago, they did pass cannabis. And the governor at the time, Kristi Noem, who is running for re-election and likely to get re-elected, shut it down over procedural concerns. And so I would expect that to be the case once again. But if she sees 70%, 80% of the vote is for cannabis, I think the woman's going to be hard pressed to try and push back against it, especially when she's eyeing up a presidential run in 2 years. We shall see.
What if, Gretchen, what if it passes by a much smaller margin, like 52, 54, even 57%? What do you think?
I think then she will absolutely have room to go after it. And frankly, when you look at the polls, folks have said 51% disagree with her handling of cannabis, but she still has a higher approval rating. I think if it comes down to a close margin, I think they will absolutely look for a way to kill it again.
Maybe she can get her good friend Herschel Walker to fly out and help her with the rhetoric again.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, not going down that trail. Not
Well,
going.
she did
down-
last time.
no,
Just
I
saying.
mean,
She
I mean,
did.
Herschel Walker's campaigning, bro. He's and she
He was last time.
she has big aspirations, and she needs to get off of her prohibitionist hot seat because it's not serving her any good in South Dakota or nationally if she wants to really elevate herself to that level.
But does she really care? Do you think that she really cares? Or she's stuck on her laurels?
She will care once it affects whether or not she can be electable, as well as the type of funding that she'll be able to receive from campaign contributions.
She strikes me as more of the I will die on that hill for what I personally believe in. She strikes me as one of those people.
So you think she's a Republican Tory
82% of people in South Dakota identify as an active Christian.
Jason,
what exactly is an active Christian? Like,
Goes
what's
to
it gonna
church.
be?
Goes to church. Defines
Not
active
just
Christian.
like not just born a Christian or like is a Christian.
Or not
You
just
got to do the right
act-
steps.
not just
okay?
act Christian,
You
but
got to
you put
do
it-
the.
you-
Yeah.
But we often talk about religion and in a
Right.
conversation as to like legalization and what kind of push we're having against it. So that's something that now when we talk about a state, I just go straight to the Google. I'm like, how many people here are religious or
maybe some of
exceptionally
those-
religious? And is
maybe
it
some of
a
those-
large one group? Because that ends up working a lot better.
pot smoking.
What were you
priests
asking,
can come
Gretchen?
through for her.
Were you suggesting that she needs to worry about campaign funds coming from the cannabis side to get elected president? Are you suggesting big money is coming out of cannabis for her if she were to back
I'm
this?
just
That's
saying
a valid
that she.
point, Gretchen. We ain't got no money here. We broke.
We ain't got no
bitches.
money. She doesn't care what
We
we
broke
think.
bitches.
You'll be surprised. Just watch. Just wait and see. Just wait
I've
and
been
see the
waiting and
pivots.
watching for years to see some cannabis money start rolling in.
Yeah,
And
you
y'all
know,
got
you
no money.
The only
obviously,
people
you
No
that are-
obviously,
money when you look at
The only
lobbying.
people that are
No
giving
trackable money.
are like fucking like Curaleaf and that sort. There's like probably like 4 or 5 companies that are giving money, and it's basically like, you're partnering up with a publicly traded company pretty much. That's probably a subsidiary or a conglomerate of other publicly traded companies, and you're just working with
Mhm.
business in the same way, big business. But like cannabis isn't giving
When-
big lobby
When it
money.
comes to lobbying on the Hill, cannabis is bless your heart money. That's all it is.
yeah.
bless your
That's
heart.
okay.
And for those of you who are not from the South,
Please elaborate
For
on that. I need some
for
bless
those
your
of you who
heart.
are not from
Bless
the South,
your
bless your
heart.
heart
Some
means
collection plate
fuck
dollars.
Yeah. It's bless your heart. Bless your heart.
heart. Thanks
Yeah.
for the
Collection
clarification.
plate cash.
Mhm.
Now let me step
What-
on your neck.
bless your heart in a nice way is like, aw, you dumb bitch.
Yeah.
Bless your
And
heart.
Gretchen, I have a question. I'm torn in politics. If you vote what your constituents want, you might get reelected. But if you are sincerely torn and feel that your constituents are wrong, as in the case of Liz Cheney,
Sure.
she paid the price for doing what she felt was right. And so what if South Dakota governor feels that, cannabis is evil and I don't care what you all believe, I'm going to go this way. So it's like, that's what puzzles me about politics.
The trouble with politics is, honestly, if you really believe in what public officials are to do, they are to vote the will of their constituents. So they're not supposed to be taking their own stances on things. So in theory, Liz Cheney should have done what her constituents want. If you look
right.
at Alabama, Richard Shelby should be all about pot because his constituents are, but he's like, no, I just can't see it. I just don't think it's a good thing. And it's like, he doesn't care. I mean, politicians do whatever they want. And frankly, they do what it takes to get reelected. And Liz Cheney's going to do just fine, not being in Congress anymore. She's gonna make a run.
Of course,
You're going to see this.
she's not going to run anywhere. She's going to
you're
run in
crazy.
place. She's going
You're
to run
out
in
your damn
place.
mind. You don't think
She's going to
Liz
run in
Cheney
place.
has
She's
set
going to
herself
have
up.
she's
Yeah.
going to have no support. It's just going to be nothing but Halliburton and
There
all
are
of that
plenty
shit.
of us
Nothing but
moderate,
Halliburton?
middle of the road Republicans who remember fondly the days of Reagan. I know what bullshit
she
you're
is a
believing in.
warmonger. No,
What
no
point?
way.
At what point?
Is
Isn't that's what that's the appetite though, Jason.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
appetite.
You're
Watch.
crazy.
Gretchen, my money's
Liz.
on.
Gretchen, I got money on
2024.
Gretchen.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Part of the
It's
deep
not
I got
going
money
to
on
go
Gretchen
nowhere.
here.
Part of the deep state, Jason.
I don't know. This the lady from South Dakota, the governor, she has a better chance of winning president than Liz Cheney does.
We didn't say she'd win. Okay, Gretchen
gonna
didn't say
run.
she'd win, but she gonna
Gretchen
run.
ain't winning shit, but
She's
let's-
fucking sharpening her
Not try.
spikes.
She's ready
Screwing
to
him
split,
in.
ready to split the vote.
I guarantee you Liz Cheney can raise more money than Kristi Noem can.
She's
In a
biting
heartbeat.
her nails off.
Oh,
I agree with that, too.
boy. Oh boy. Well, that's because she has Dick Cheney's Rolodex.
What a dick. It's Rolodex to have.
Well, it's nice to have our finger on your side.
Let's keep smoking in this. Let's keep this motherfucking party rolling. Up next, it's a cannabis business consultant and industry veteran certified in 3 states as a bona fide bullshit buster. And his high at nines in-house dirtbag expert as well. Y'all know who it is coming to the stage next? The self-described general data bitch herself, Nicole West. What you got for us on this beautiful Monday morning?
Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. My headline today is actually coming out of Bloomberg, and it is Europe's call for medical cannabis sees South Africa firm thrive. Now, I want to say this is super interesting to me because I've been watching the communication and the import-export between South Africa, Europe, and Australia kind of develop over the past couple years, and I had no idea this was the direction that product was moving. So booming demand for the medical cannabis from Europe to Australia has seen several South African producers sell all of its output for the next year in advance. Safricana signed a deal with Germany and Australia for the bulk of the production. The CEO of its largest investor, Opastia, said in an interview, Basim Hadir. The company started construction of its facilities in the capital, Pretoria, in 2019 and shipped its first flowers in June. In the same month, it agreed with a German-based Demacan to supply medical cannabis flower. So, okay, South Africa growing the cannabis, packaging it up, shipping it to Germany, to Demacan, okay, for flower. Then, to meet rising demand, Safrican aims to increase its production 5-fold by 2024. It will spend $40 million US in expanding its facilities in Pretoria to produce 25,000 kilos or 55,000 pounds of cannabis flower per year from 5,000 kilograms currently. The legalization of medical cannabis in more than 40 nations has led to an explosion in demand for the product that can be used to help treat nausea, Alzheimer's, and chronic pain. Safrican is among a handful of African companies to have met the European Union's strict GMP standards or good manufacturing practices, allowing it to export cannabis flowers as an active pharmaceutical ingredient to Europe, Hadir said. The global medicinal cannabis market was worth $26 billion in 2021 and is expected to expand to a compound annual growth rate at 10.4% through 2027, according to research from IMARC Group. A 51-year-old Nigerian-born entrepreneur, Hadir chose to invest in South African cannabis industry because of its infrastructure, cheap land, and good climate, he said. According to Prohibition Partners, the country's cannabis industry is predicted to be worth $27 billion. So the interesting part about this is that the weed is going from South Africa to Germany for import, and right now there is product going from Germany to Australia. But 2 years ago, Australia started making all of this money exporting weed from Australia to Switzerland. So I'm just saying, logistically speaking, couldn't there be a better way to keep weed within the borders that we're growing it and produce product that we test locally and use locally? And then it made me have a little bit of a head scratcher about South Africa in general, because South Africa legalized cannabis for adult use in 2018. However, it doesn't allow for it to be in public. So there's no ability to sell the product. So all of these large farms that are growing cannabis in South Africa, in fact, are exporting all of the product. None of that product is staying within the country. And so then I started to wonder, at what point is South Africa going to have ability to purchase product? And when I was there was a few coffee shops and there are, some workarounds, very similar to Amsterdam in the way that the businesses ran. However, I'm really curious to see what happens over the next year or so with South Africa, because there is a growing revolution right now. They call it Daga in South Africa. And, just look up the Daga couple. And it is insane to see what's happening right now with the revolutionaries for cannabis. I mean, people are literally being murdered by the government in the effort to try to bring cannabis to South Africa. And I'm watching this right here, and it makes a ton of sense because they're probably making a ton more money sending their weed to Germany than if they sold it to the people of South Africa. And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
Thank you for covering this, Nicole. I know Nicole Bafong on our team has covered that movement in depth several times too. It's very, very fucked up what's going on there. But I thought that Pretoria was an American sovereign nation outside of Quahog.
I don't have an answer for that.
Never saw that on The Family Guy.
Oh.
Jesus Christ. I knew I had heard of Quahog. I was like, where the
Me too.
Quahog?
I'm
I was
like,
where the hell is that?
I
Where
think
is
I've
that?
been there.
I was like, I have no answer for that because I don't even understand your question. So I'm just going to sit here and be like, I don't know.
So Peter established a sovereign nation with he called it Pretoria. Sorry.
Oh, that's right.
Right over y'all's heads.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh my God. Okay. Regardless,
It's not efficient at all, and it just goes to show that old habits die very warily, and it looks like the same old shit that we've seen happen in history over and over and over again.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm curious to see at what point does South Africa actually get the ability to cultivate product for themselves and have cannabis for themselves, because the idea of legalizing for adult use and just saying, but you have to keep it completely in private and like there's no public access to it, basically means like buy some seeds, put it in your backyard and never fucking leave.
Right.
So you're saying there are no dispensaries?
No, there's some like cafes, and some of the cafes have like a bunch of CBD. They all have a ton of CBD products, right? Like a gang of CBD products, and then there is some weed. There's probably about when I was in Cape Town, there's probably about 5 to 10 spots that like sell weed, but it's because you become a member of a club, and it becomes this whole thing where you're like, it's not a cannabis sales per se. It's gifting or some workaround that they get for the private membership part.
Do we know anything about cannabis consumption in South Africa? Are they big consumers? I mean, like compared to other countries, are they big? Do they want to smoke? Is this been a big part of their culture?
It is a big part of their culture, and yes, they want to smoke.
Nicole, when you were out there, how would you rate the quality of cannabis? You're out there.
B minus, B plus. However, some of the terps, like I smoked Durban, and that was Durban, and it's like when you smell Durban, and if you know cannabis and you smell Durban, bro, it was and I went on like a mission to find it because I'm like, this is the oldest strain that we know of, or cultivar that we know of on the planet. And so I'm like, I want to smoke that shit. Like I need to smoke that. And I did. And the smell was so strong. I think
Durban
I sent pictures.
Poison is the oldest cultivar on the planet.
One of the oldest ones that we know of as far as like,
okay. All right.
Yeah. As far as the ones that the roots of where it comes from, not like necessarily Durban, but like the root of that strain.
Yes.
Yeah. Africa and Afghanistan are the like oldest documented like cultivars where we can be like, this is what this is and where it came from. Not the oldest of weed. We just had weed, Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rico. I feel like all of the riches of Africa are not being experienced by the people, and just their leaders are probably being paid to make these deals and exporting the riches out of the country, and the people don't even get to experience it. It's awful.
At all. Well, maybe with the death of the queen last week, at least you can get some of those jewels back.
Well, when I'm really,
it's like, why would anything be different? I'm sorry, just to hop in here, but why would anything be different on this continent just because it's a different product? The people are going to be the ones who suffer. The environment will be the one to suffer. We're all suffering. Humanity suffers. So if you can benefit on those terps, or whatever, those diamonds, or whatever.
It's the side of capitalism that people want to not even acknowledge exists. and it's seen every day in broad daylight in nations like Africa, in continents like Africa, and nations like South Africa that continue to suffer because, we get things quicker and easily and more easily in nations like America and in a lot of the European nations as well, unfortunately.
I really just want to see South Africa give Canada a run for the money on the export of weed.
1 in 10 adults in South Africa have consumed cannabis in the past 3 months, according to a recent poll.
Wow.
So about 10% of adults, which that's pretty good. California and Colorado have a much larger number, but I think we've just gotten to the place of being open about it. So I'd say that's probably, half of the truth. There's probably
we have Lamont up from the Clubhouse audience. Lamont, do you have a brief comment on this, 20 seconds or less? I'm seeing nothing. All right, Lamont, thanks for coming up.
All right. Well, thank you guys for indulging me in that conversation. And yeah, I'm definitely curious. I'm curious to see what's actually happening because half of me wonders if any of this. I feel like a lot of it might be just fucking bullshit for press release for people to get the stocks, right? Like I think a lot of this, I'm just like, are we actually doing this, or is this something that we're saying we're doing so that we can get some, movement in our stock market?
It's just a bunch of boof.
And this is all a simulation.
News.
Right, It's all simulation. Follow the money, right? Anyways, time for our disclaimer. The thoughts and opinions in general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. The statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of substance in any country, area, territory, or authorities. Views expressed in the room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not imply constitute endorsement by us, the expression of our opinion whatsoever, any part, any speaker, or anyone on stage. If you're an easily offended person, the show is probably not for you. Also, fuck off.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX. Located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and you like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order.
Our next correspondent splits her days and nights between cooking delicious treats and battling out on K Street with pot-loving libs across the aisle. She's a full-time, feisty, red-headed conservative with Mayflower roots and a unhealthy love for all things safe banking alongside her good friend Jason Beck. Coming to the stage next, the founder of Panoptic Strategies and our very own Washington insider, Gretchen Gailey.
Good afternoon, Rico. My headline is coming from Marijuana Moment. And of course, it's about safe banking. Senator says marijuana banking bill will help light bulb manufacturers and others outside of cannabis industry. It's not just marijuana businesses that stand to benefit from a bipartisan cannabis banking bill, as Senator and top insurance officials said on Thursday. It's also about safeguards for ancillary companies that serve the industry, like a light bulb manufacturer whose product malfunctions in a grow house, catching fire and creating insurance liabilities. Senator Bob Menendez gave the light bulb example during a Senate Banking Committee hearing when he talked about the need to pass the Safe Banking Act, which also contains insurance-related provisions that were integrated from separate legislation he's sponsoring. According to Congress.gov, this technically marks the first Senate hearing on the Safe Banking Act during the 117th Congress, even if the legislation was only briefly discussed as part of a broader meeting on insurance issues. Menendez says, I'm concerned that businesses that have nothing to do with cannabis could face serious consequences. Imagine a scenario where a New Jersey light bulb manufacturer sells a product to a state legalized cannabis business, and there's a fire related to that light bulb, causing the business to suffer loss. Under current law, in this scenario I just described, could the light bulb manufacturer's insurance company face federal charges? They paid the claim. Kathleen Bahrain, a representative of the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, replied that they support this really critical cannabis banking reform, telling Menendez that the challenges that the insurance companies have is using the banking system to transfer funds to a cannabis business. So the answer is that if a circumstance which could be challenging for that light bulb company's insurer in trying to use the banking system to pay money to the cannabis business, Bahrain, who serves as Maryland's insurance commissioner, said, it's really critical that businesses be able to buy insurance. that they be able to pay for that insurance, and when claims occur, the insurance companies be able to use the banking system to pay those claims. The Safe Banking Act would allow that to happen. While there are some lawmakers who would like to see the standalone bill brought to the floor for a vote with the expectation that it enjoys enough bipartisan support to be enacted, leadership isn't on board with the legislation as drafted. I like the story just because I like that other folks are talking about safe banking. I like to see Menendez involved in the discussion. He is considered a senior member of the Senate. And I think anytime that we can talk about cannabis reforms anywhere, even if it's a hearing outside of, actual cannabis discussions, I think it's important. And people will start to see that cannabis is a part of our daily lives and should not be treated separately. This is Gretchen for High at 9 News.
That's right. Pass safe banking already.
Fuck safe banking already.
You're just a hater, bro. That's what people no licenses say. Fuck safe banking.
Definitely need banking. And the insurance issue, Gretchen, is literally something that I've been trying to stay kind of quiet about because I don't want to cause a ton of liability. But at the same time, I have to kind of squawk about because my job is liability assessment and addressing it. But we're in this weird fucking place where it's like we don't have enough insurances and we're not protected enough. But I don't want to say that too much because people are fucking
The
trash.
prohibitionists will use it against us.
So you want to talk about
trash.
Insurance, but you can't because you have lack of insurance to talk about insurance.
Yes. Our coverage doesn't allow us to talk about it.
To talk about how uncovered we are in these businesses. And I'm talking about labor law. I'm talking about logistics. You want to talk about getting out on the road, moving material around on the fucking road?
Naked.
You're just out there
just naked.
Like fucking no windshield, balls out. Like it is dangerous out there. Like
sounds like a cool ride.
No, it is scary because without the ability to have proper banking and proper insurances, we are literally just liability movements. The moment you leave your little space, it's scary. And I'm talking about the moment that product leaves or the moment that people leave. It's dangerous. And so I would like safe banking as somebody who looks at liabilities and says, without this next step, we're never going to get any of these big insurance fucking coverages and these big carriers to protect us as businesses like we deserve as a real business. Like we deserve real coverage. We deserve to be protected from people being, ambulance chaser, shithead lawyers, which right now we're not.
Yes.
We're not protected from those people.
And we hate those kind of lawyers, ambulance chasers.
I think you bring up such an important point that people aren't realizing. A lot of people say, if we pass safe banking, it's not going to do much. It's not going to move the needle. It's not going to get investors off the fence, yada, yada. But there's so many other issues that safe banking touches that can really help businesses on the ground that we need. And I'm sorry if everyone thinks it's just going to help Big Brother, but that's just bullshit. It's not going to just help the major companies. There are small businesses that are struggling, and safe banking, Rico, go fuck yourself, can help.
And
I got a wife.
That's right, Gretchen. 100%.
And I will say it over and over and over again. No, fuck safe. Fuck safe banking. Unless
Rico, you've already backpedaled on the issue.
Hold on. Unless you use the amendments that were put forward by the CRCC earlier in September, then I can rock with safe banking. But until you couple them with helping out the communities that you've already fucked over with fucked up banking, then it's just not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to be anything except for a boon for large businesses and large insurance companies as well. Period.
I have no problem with the amendments put forward by the CRCC. And I will say, after being at the PBC conference last week, I think people are taking those amendments seriously. And I think they are getting a good hard look at for Safe Banking Plus. And I think you may be a little happier. You won't be fully happy. I know that ain't going to happen. But I think you'll be a little happier.
Nobody is. And I'm okay
what
with that.
gets proposed down the road.
I think nobody is, and I'm okay with that. I just hope that Safe Banking Plus doesn't end up like CNN Plus.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That shit got canceled. Absolutely no viewership, no support. That's right. That's what happens when you're fake news.
No, it's not. When you're fake news, you live forever. Evil never dies, bro.
We'll see. I mean, you see what's happening over there. They have major restructuring going on over there.
They're gonna become the new Fox News.
That's when, bro. They know where the money's at.
I think that's
The
I
word
think
structure
that's-
is for sure in there. I just don't know where.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a fantastic story. Thank you so much for bringing that to our attention, Gretchen. But coming up next, one visit to this office is sure to get you access to all kinds of blue pills. All shapes, sizes, and colors are always included and welcome in this safe space. She's the Plants for Life CEO and a dual board certified physician, always promoting cannabis as medicine. And if you play your cards right, she'll mix some yellow ones with your blue ones to make a greener experience. Coming up next, it is none other than the Dr. Felicia Dawson.
Thank you so much, Jason. Happy Monday, everyone. My headline comes from the French Toast. Cannabis More Effective Than Prescription Drugs for Pregnancy-Related Nausea by Terry Hacienda. I'd like to also begin with a disclaimer. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Academy of Pediatrics, discourage the use of cannabis during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Nausea and vomiting of pregnancy is very common and present in mild to moderate degrees in 70 to 80% of women. Hyperemesis gravidarum is a severe form of nausea and vomiting of pregnancy and occurs in 1 to 2% of women. Hyperemesis gravidarum can result in dehydration, nutritional deficiencies, weight loss, metabolic abnormalities, fatigue, hospitalization, depression, postpartum PTSD in the mom, and in the baby, a growth restriction, low birth weight, preterm birth, low APGARs, and in very severe cases, neurodevelopmental delays, ADHD, and decreased cognition. A new study published in the journal Geburtshilfe und Frauenheilkunde, which is my sincere attempt at German, stands for obstetrics and gynecology, and found that cannabis works better than prescription drugs for treating hyperemesis gravidarum. Researchers from University of California, Los Angeles, and Oregon Hyperemesis Education and Research Foundation polled 550 people who experienced nausea while pregnant, found that 82% of those who used cannabis found relief. Only 60% of prescription anti-nausea medicine users received relief. Other findings in the study: 96% of the 550 people used pharmaceuticals. Only 25% of them gained weight. 14% of the 550 sample used cannabis. So that means that some people were using cannabis and pharmaceuticals. The people using cannabis gained 50%, 56% of them gained weight, as opposed to the 25% using pharmaceuticals. A little over half people use cannabis daily or multiple times during the day. The most frequent use of a delivery method was smoking at 59%, followed by eating at 19%, drinking at 9%, and vaping, topicals, and dabbing came in at 5%, and 3%. 57% of the products were THC only or THC dominant, and the researchers made a point of stating that these two types of cannabis preparations seem to do better than the one-to-one THC CBD and the CBD dominant strains. The article goes on to talk about a case study that came out late 2021 from Israel, where 4 patients with hyperemesis gravidarum smoked cannabis. It was a THC dominant strain, and all 4 ladies did well. Their babies came out perfectly normal. The researchers do state that their limitations include it being a self-report project. Also, even though they put this survey in 21 countries, or 21 countries participated, 79% of the respondents were white women living in America in the suburbs. Also, they did not use a standardized tool to measure nausea severity, and they did not include hospitalizations and other forms of treatment. I have heard and read comments from physicians, typically male, that there's no evidence that cannabis works for nausea and vomiting of pregnancy or hyperemesis gravidarum. While this survey is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial, it points to a truth that women, their midwives, herbalists, and yes, some of their physicians have known for thousands of years. Cannabis works for nausea, vomiting, and hyperemesis gravidarum. I honor these researchers who persisted and were able to get this important work published, even if they had to go outside the United States to get it done. Also, the National Institute of Drug Abuse needs some props because they funded this work. It's now time to deschedule cannabis so that researchers can use the whole plant and begin replacing the body of science that failed to control for confounders and based primarily on synthetic cannabinoid isolates. This body of science continues to misinform healthcare providers about this plant medicine to this very day. I'm Dr. Felicia Dawson, reporting for the High at 9 News. What are your thoughts?
It was a great article. Thank you
Yes.
so much for covering this, Dr. Felicia. Such a privilege for us to have this coming from the mouth of a doctor as well, and all of your work that you've done in the field too. Much love.
Yeah, one thing that really stood out to me in this study is that 9 of the people who use pharmaceuticals wound up terminating their pregnancy because they couldn't stand it anymore.
Mm.
Nobody in the cannabis group terminated their pregnancy. I thought that was pretty amazing.
Wow.
Staggering statistics.
That's a serious stat. Can you email me that, Dr. Felicia, that stat?
Dr. Felicia,
Okay.
when you talk about this kind of nausea, I mean, you're talking about serious stuff, right? This is not just morning sickness, correct?
Well, hyperemesis gravidarum is the worst form of it, but I can tell you, I've experienced nausea myself. I didn't have it during my pregnancy, but that is one of the worst feelings you could ever have, to be nauseous. It's horrible. It's like
And
having
having witnessed that firsthand in the past couple of years, I can attest, man, I'd never, ever want anybody who loves the person who's carrying their child to see them in that state. It's just a shitty position to be in. And when you know that the drugs that the doctors are giving you aren't really helping, like, you just feel absolutely helpless.
I'm not a doctor, but every time I look at the options between something that helps me that's like a plant and something that helps me that looks like hard drugs, I feel like I'm going to go with the plant. I'm going to say if that works, why go to the next step? Why go to the chemical compounds? Like if you can find relief in a natural form, but that's not our Western medicine system. They don't like to say things like that. They like to say, here's a pill rather than change your diet. Here's a pill rather than, what kind of lotion are you using?
Right. Yeah.
They're literally like, here's a pill for that. You're like, what?
And for those of us who have struggled with addiction, man, like, you're like looking at that pill, like, yeah, you really don't want to be hurting, but you really don't want to fall back into that cycle. It's a double-edged sword. And unfortunately, you have to go the quote unquote illegal path in America to get some kind of relief. Like, that ain't it, man. And we need to follow science, and we need to open up the floodgates and allow a lot of these studies into the U.S., into the urban communities where we need it the most.
We also have Dr. Mary in the audience with us in Clubhouse, and I'm wondering, Dr. Mary, do you have any comments on this new research?
Oh, thank you. I mean, it adds to the existing body of research that is, that is full of pros and cons. And I know that it works for nausea, certainly in cancer patients. I don't see why the nausea of pregnancy would be much different, because all of it is what we refer to as supratentorial, like a nausea that is coming from the brain rather than coming from some sort of abnormality within the gut itself. Like, for example, gastroparesis or chronic constipation can cause nausea. So the causation, it makes sense that it would work. I think we just have to, move forward when we're dealing with pregnant women and unborn children with an abundance of caution and look at all the literature as carefully as we can and just be very, very, very cautious in how we handle our pregnant people. But this is along with everybody else that we take care of, but especially somebody whose cells are growing and multiplying at the fastest rate of their entire life. We want to provide all the best things for those little ones. So this is exciting and worth continuing to monitor.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that, Dr. Mary.
You're welcome.
I look forward to the researchers being released and being able to work with the real plant because the synthetic cannabinoids can get us in the ballpark, but they don't behave exactly like the plant. And so we need the plant to actually find ourselves on the basis. We can't just keep using synthetic cannabinoid isolates and extrapolating that to mean that this is how the plant works in the body. It's just not true.
Deschedule or bust.
Exactly. Dr. Felicia,
Mhm.
are they going to be, is this same group, do they have any other studies in line or in the queue that they are working on that is similar to this study?
I'm not sure, Jason. I'm not sure, but Ziva Cooper is one of the researchers, and she's done a lot of work with the NIH and is very pro cannabis. And I'm just thankful that they worked hard enough to get this published, because now it's trickling down into our lay materials, and now other doctors can read about it and know that cannabis can hold its own against any pharmaceutical for nausea and vomiting and hyperemesis gravidarum.
Much love. So up next, and bringing us home today, this feminized Lone Star State advocate and storyteller is the co-founder of Grow House Media and can be found weekly on her podcast by the same exact name, Feminized, where she interviews some of the dopest women in cannabis. You know who it is coming to the stage next. Liz Grow. What you got for us this
Hey.
beautiful Monday morning? What's popping?
Hey, I'll tell you what's poppin' from the great state of Texas, you guys. This article came out on Sunday. Shout out to Miss Nicole West for sourcing it. But it's hemp was supposed to save Texas farmers during a drought, but it hasn't yet. This is from the San Antonio Current by Sneha Day. When the Texas legislature legalized hemp in 2019, State Senator Charles Perry called hemp the hot crop, a drought-resistant lifeline for farmers. It got the Senate and the House with unanimous votes. It had the backing of Agricultural Commissioner Sid Miller, allowing the Texas Department of Agriculture to create an industrial hemp program here in Texas will give Texas farmers an exciting new opportunity to thrive. And that's something we should all get behind, said Sid Miller to the Texas Tribune then. It's all about Texas farmers and ranchers, seeing them prosper. But since legalization, farmers have lost interest in hemp, especially the kind grown for fiber and grain to make clothes, textiles, and paper. Those who invested have yet to see returns and say hemp, like other crops, is struggling across the state during one of the driest years on record. Farmers across Texas are having to cut their losses by abandoning failing crops used to save valuable resources. And with so much at stake, some farmers just aren't willing to risk investing in hemp. The interest is not there with farmers, said Kyle Bingham, the president of the Texas Hemp Growers Association. They don't want to waste time, money, land, or anything on hemp right now. And as hemp production struggles to take off, farmers are still straining to make profits, hitting rural communities that depend greatly on the agricultural community. This year's drought was the first serious weather test for Texas' emerging hemp industry. And by all measures, hemp planted in Texas soil hasn't been able to withstand extreme conditions. To say this is a drought-tolerant crop is not accurate. Cheers to that, said Kyle Bingham, who grows industrial hemp along with grapes on his Meta farm southwest of Lubbock. We can grow dryland cotton on a year like this when you never have any success with a dryland hemp crop. The state, seeing its driest year since 2011 with more than 76% of Texans facing drought conditions, has had devastating impact on Texas farmers, and those hemp farmers are no exception. Farmers saw industrial hemp fail because the soil hardened in the dry heat. Hemp can also be grown for CBD, in which case is grown in greenhouses, but that needs even larger amounts of water than industrial hemp. For hemp to grow CBD and fiber, optimum daytime temperatures production is 70 degrees to 80 degrees, but temperatures across the state this summer broke highs and were often over 100 degrees, compounding conditions that led to low-yield crops. The U.S. Congress passed an Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018 legalizing hemp at a federal level as long as it didn't contain more than 0.3% THC. And the following year, the Texas legislature followed suit, creating a pathway for the production of hemp and hemp-derived products with hemp-derived CBD oil with less than 0.3% of THC. The bill gave the state primary regulatory authority over the production of hemp. But it wasn't just about regulation. Advocates envisioned a booming hemp industry in Texas. At one hearing, the House Agriculture and Livestock Committee heard testimony about out-of-state success in Kentucky, which was a hemp pilot program where they were paid $3,000 to $5,000 an acre for hemp. The agricultural industry has been facing an economic downturn for some time. Even in cotton, a crop that's seen strength in Texas agriculture, it was struggling. The legalization of hemp was welcomed as a possible solution to the downturn, even an alternative to cotton. But now hemp licenses are down, according to industry experts. The legalization of hemp was accompanied by an influx of hemp growers, eager to cash in on the new crop. But the demand couldn't keep up with the gold rush mentality, and Texans were flailing and failing to find buyers after they harvested the crop. And there still isn't even a clear market for hemp in Texas, y'all. Farmers are finding little to no established processing facilities or consistent buyers looking for Texas-grown fiber or grain. Many retailers are still sourcing their fiber and grain internationally to get goods at a better price point. But despite all of this, the leaders in the hemp industry maintain optimism that the crop can take off so long as farmers can regain interest in the industrial hemp and introduce it into their row crop rotations. Farmers can work hemp genetics to better tolerate drought conditions. And a lot of that research is happening at Texas A&M University. But with licenses down, the industry must build an appetite for the crop in a fragile industry in which taking a risk with hemp has already hurt many farmers. Time is running out and the promise and potential in Texas is waning. You guys, I have spent so much time with hemp farmers in Texas over the past 2 years, and I was able to document all of this excitement and hope in the very first year. And now we're just seeing things, they're just not panning out. We really couldn't learn from other states, but we had to try. But what I have to say about this as a proud Texan is that what burns is really undereducated and inadequate lawmakers are standing in the way to research and prosperity, and they're not supporting our farmers. So I'm pissed, and I'm glad that this year is an election year for all Texas lawmakers, y'all. I'm Liz Groh, and I'm a proud Texan, and I'm reporting for High at 9 News. What do you guys think about this story?
Liz, I think this is just a picture of what happens when government does not get behind what they are pushing. I mean, this is why we need regulations. This is why we need legalized markets. I mean, the processing of hemp, I think, has really been the downfall of the hemp industry, is folks are coming together with their farms and stuff and have nowhere to go with product. I mean, if you want to make money in this industry, open a hemp processing facility. It's sorely needed.
It's sorely
But it's a
needed,
long-term
but
investment.
it's a long-term investment, and the cost and return on it right now is so fucking low to the hempcrete, the actual profit margin on making the hempcrete, because now with the cost of wood and everything going up and steel, there might be more of an opportunity now, but at that point hempcrete might be that much more as well, but the actual what they can sell it for, it's such a small number. I Googled, this is such a random reality. I Googled how much does it cost to grow an acre of hemp, because I know how much it costs to grow an acre of cannabis where you're trying to smoke that shit, and it is way more. So I had to look it up for hemp. And so it's estimated production expense of $286 per acre, with a net return, if you're doing fiber, ranging between negative $116, so you could lose $116 off your fiber, up to $473. So you could make up to $500 an acre, which is drastically higher than a lot of other crops, not higher than wheat, not higher than soy currently. So wheat and soy are still outpacing the return on acreage of investment in hemp. And hemp is a fucking pain in the ass because of some extra hoops you have to jump through. So, you do it 1 or 2 seasons after being a wheat farmer or a corn farmer, and then you're just like, fuck this.
Yeah, and what we saw in Texas too is a lot of farmers are like, I'm a farmer. I've got many, many sections. They talk in sections and not acres. And I learned this. If you ask them how big their farm is, that's rude. Don't do that. Okay, just a little tip from me to you. Yeah, it's like asking them how big their dick is. It's like,
Just the
dude,
tip. Just the tip.
just want to know how much of this shit you're willing to give to hemp, and it's really sad, but a lot of ego went into it too, and that's
A lot of it you have to know
Growers,
the
not
acreage,
showers.
so that's not
Yeah.
really an option. Like you
No.
have to tell me how many acres we're growing on because I have to register this in a fucking database
Oh
somewhere.
yeah. Well, but if you're personally talking, if you're having a conversation personally and you look them in the eye and ask them, I'm telling you, Nicole, you would die talking to a lot of farmers here.
Please,
A lot of
grow.
those
How big
important
is your
ones.
farm?
Everything's
baby.
big. Texas.
How many,
yours.
how many hectares you got on your farm, girl?
All right. Well,
Bigger.
we are at time on that story. Thank you so much, Liz, for bringing us some amazing information and some sad information out of Texas. Hopefully, we'll be able to see that develop in the way that it was supposed to. But
Hopefully.
it's looking bleak. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Catch us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific time and high noon on the East Coast. Big thank you to our sponsors, audience, supporters, and everyone on the back end keeping us going. Thank you to the haters for still talking about us, and True Classic and LAXCC for helping us eat. All the correspondents for coming on here and getting pretty for the show in the morning. We know it is exhausting, but I think it's noon where Gretchen is, so that's positive. Thank you, Weed, for helping us all
High
be
noon.
funny. High noon. Thank you to 3S4 for being awesome. Trippy House Cats helping us sound like we know what we are doing. And thank you all for getting high at 9 with us. It's time to run the outro music, guys.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and entheogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamite, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.